G'day everyone, welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico, and we've just entered the hurricane season here. We haven't had any yet, thank goodness. Our friends over on the Pacific coast though have had 5 named systems already this year, but we've started to see the rain, so they're not too far away, that's for sure. Now, getting on to today's video, I'm going to be talking about Scott Razor Robertson, his performance in 2024, but what can we look forward to in 2025? It's his second year in charge of the New Zealand All Blacks. And of course, the pressure is going to be on Razor Robertson again this year. Last year, 10 wins, 4 losses from his record. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into what I think happened last year and what I think they need to focus on this year as the All Black coaching crew is concerned. Okay, so let's start off, and first of all, the first impact this year I think that Razor's got to play with is his new selections. Yes, we've got 5 uncapped players coming into the All Blacks, and I think this is a bit of an X factor, or could be, if Robertson decides to actually select these players. One of the things I had a problem with last year with Razor Robertson was his selections at times for different games. And if you watch my videos last year, I was talking about people like Billy Proctor, who I felt weren't getting enough game time, particularly early in the season, and that started to show out with some of the other combinations not quite working. So are we going to see something different this year with these 5 uncapped players actually being given an opportunity to show their wares early on in the series against France perhaps? And that's what Robertson might do. So of course the 5 uncapped players are Tavatavana Nuai, Duplessis, Karefi, Fabian Holland, Ollie Norris and Brodie McAllister. So let's see if they're going to get an opportunity. We've got someone like Karefi who's really like the All Blacks potential version of Quagga Smith, isn't he? Getting in there, being a disruptor, getting that quick turnover, and I think that's going to be an important part of Razor's strategy in 2025 as he continues to build that particular type of play into the New Zealand style. Now, I think another thing Razor's going to do in 2025 is look at the hybrid players that he's got within the team and see how they can be used. Now, this hybrid kind of player concept gives a bit of an opportunity to change things up when it comes to defences looking at the All Blacks in a different way, but we've already heard people like Justin Marshall talking about this hybrid system not being something that they really want to get behind and support. Marshall, for instance, is someone who talks about specialists in positions, and I've got to say I'm also one of those believers that I think it's better off having expert positional players who build combinations over times. But we've got players who are coming into this series for the All Blacks, particularly against France. Tavatavata Nuai is one of them. He can play on the wing or in the midfield. We've got Ruben Love, of course, who can play on the wing, number 10, and also at fullback. We've got Will Jordan, of course, who can play on the wing or at fullback. So it's going to be interesting to see how Razor uses these potential hybrid players in the All Black strategy this year. And is this going to be one of the things that he does to try and disrupt the defensive patterns of the other teams that the All Blacks are going to be playing this year? Now, next up, we're going to talk about leadership. And last year, I wasn't overly convinced with Scott Barrett in terms of his leadership for this All Black team, particularly in those close games that got very tight. And I'm going to talk about another element of that I think Razor is going to have to focus on this year with the All Black team. Now, of course, leadership is vital. We've got Ardie Savea, of course, who seems to do a very good job when he steps into that captaincy role. But are the senior players of the All Black group this year going to be able to really stand up and make it count in those important moments in those big games? And of course, that's the difference between winning and losing, isn't it? Making those right decisions, getting those calls right. And we've seen that being a little bit of a weakness, I thought, throughout the All Blacks campaign in 2024 in those vital moments. So look out for leadership again this year being a vital element to the All Blacks performances. Scott Barrett will be the captain, Ardie Savea a vice captain, and I'm sure some of those other older senior players in the team, such as Beauden Barrett, are also going to be able to lend their hand when it comes to directing traffic and game strategy during the games this season. Now, what style of play are the All Blacks likely to play this year? Well, I don't think Razor's going to deviate at all away from his strategy of wanting to play quick, open style rugby. It's going to be all based about efficiency of clean out, getting quick turnover ball, and then being able to use creative play in the back line to be able to bamboozle defences, use some of those weapons they've got out wide and try and score those tries. I don't think we're going to see anything different from the All Blacks than that DNA in their rugby style, and in particular Razor's DNA that he brought successfully with the Crusaders and is now trying to implement across All Black rugby. This is something we're going to have to keep a close eye on, because the All Black forward pack, I think, in the tight five are going to be very good at being able to win ball this year, and that's going to put pressure on the back line and making sure that they're going to have to use that ball in a very effective manner to be able to score points. The All Blacks are very good front runners in games of rugby, and we haven't seen a lot of that over the last year and a half, where they used to be able to dominate in that first 40 minutes, and I'm sure that's something that Razor will be focusing on, wanting to make sure that the team gets off to a good start in all of their games this year and puts pressure immediately on the opposition, particularly in the first 20 to 30 minutes of every game. I'm really starting to like the All Blacks tight five now, and their set piece efficiency should be very good this year. We need to be more impactful in the lineouts and making sure, particularly on our own throws, that we've got that communication good and we're able to deliver good clean ball for the back line to do something. So I think one of Razor's strategy is going to be making sure that that set piece efficiency is the bedrock of the All Blacks performances this year, and you can guarantee that Jason Ryan and his crew are going to be working extra hard on that forward pack to make sure that they deliver the platform that the backs are going to require. So look out for that DNA to stay the same this year from the All Blacks. A high-paced game, quick turnovers, set-piece efficiency, and then some creative play out wide to make sure they put pressure on the defences to score a lot of points in each of their games. Now, the next area I think is a vital area for Scott Razor Robertson and his crew to really focus on in 2025, and that's closing out games in the last 20 minutes. And I was super critical of the All Blacks last year in that last 20 minutes of those tight games where they weren't able to deliver, and their record really speaks for themselves. In the last 20 minutes of those top games last year, they were scored 36 points to nil against the All Blacks in the various games. And we start off with that game against Argentina in Wellington back in August of last year, and the All Blacks were not able to put any pressure on the Argentinians in that last 20 minutes. And in fact, Argentina won the last 20 minutes of that game by 10 points to nil, and that's when that game got away from the All Blacks. Now, some of us are old enough to remember that the All Blacks DNA was all about closing out games effectively, coming back from seemingly impossible positions on the scoreboard. I won't mention that game against Ireland in particular, but that's what the All Blacks were famous for. They were famous for dominating in that last 20 minutes, being able to keep cool under pressure, make the right decisions and come home over top of teams. Well, that hasn't happened for a while now, and last year we really saw a number of examples where that was the case. After that Argentina game in Wellington, we saw those two close games in South Africa, the first at Ellis Park, and once again the All Blacks were not able to deliver in the last 20 minutes of that game. It was actually to the contrary. The South African Springboks were able to score 14 points to nil in the last 20 minutes of that game, coming over top of the All Blacks and taking that one from them. The All Blacks didn't seem to learn anything from that particular game, because the same thing happened again the next weekend in Cape Town when the All Blacks lost 6 points to nil in the last 20 minutes of that particular game. So once again, the All Blacks weren't able to withstand the pressure in the last 20 minutes of the game. And we saw it in the fourth game that they lost last year, which was against France, of course, in that thriller at the Stade de France. But it was in the third quarter where the French scored 17 points to 3 against the All Blacks and had enough in the tank to be able to hold on in the last 20 minutes, and the All Blacks didn't have enough in the last 20 minutes to come home and win that game, the French winning ultimately by 30 points to 29. So there's 4 examples where in the last 20 minutes of games last year the All Blacks didn't make the right decisions at the right times, and they didn't have the right firepower on the pitch to be able to make the decisions to be able to score the points. So that comes down to the bench the All Blacks have been using and how effective that bench is. So I think one of the big decisions Razor needs to make this year is when he brings the bench on, and what impact are they going to have. And I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch this year, with the selections for the bench for the All Blacks and what impact they're going to have. I'm going to be following that closely here on my channel and talking about the last 20 minutes of the All Black games this year, and just see whether they're able to go up another level, or whether we're going to see some of the same problems that existed in 2024. So I think those are some of the key areas that we're going to see Razor really focus on this year. Are we going to see these new uncapped players be given the opportunity to show how good they are? They've been in form during the Super Rugby season. It's been refreshing to see that players are getting picked on form, but are they going to be given a go in the black jersey against the French when that series starts in New Zealand? That's one thing that we need to look out for. The other thing is, how is Razor going to use these hybrid players? Are they going to be altered around? Are we going to see stable combinations being built within the All Blacks team? If we look at South Africa, we see that 12 and 13 jersey belonging to Damien Diolandi and Jesse Kriel. We don't see too many changes in those positions, and as a result of that, those two players have been able to build some of the best midfield combinations in World Rugby today. My concern is if the All Blacks start using this hybrid notion too much, they're going to disrupt combinations, they're going to cause communication problems, and at those critical times in these big games, it could fall apart for them. So that's something that we're going to have to keep our eye on. The other thing, as I mentioned, is leadership. Let's see whether Scott Barrett really delivers as the All Black captain this year. And then the style of play. Are we going to see the All Blacks continue that quick set piece efficiency, that quick turnover ball, and that creative play in the back line that can trouble any defensive line in the world when it's on song? But the last thing for me is going to be that most important thing. That's that last 20 minutes of the game, of the big games. Are the All Blacks going to be able to stand up and deliver? They had their opportunities last year to be able to win those big games in the last 20 minutes, and they didn't capitalise on it. And I think in the nutshell, that's really going to come down to really assessing what Razor's performance is going to be like in 2025. If he gets those things right, then I think the All Blacks have a really good chance of doing very, very well in the 2025 season, maybe losing only one game. But if they don't do that, then the other teams are going to be able to come over top of them and be able to take it out. Now, there's going to be a lot of self-belief against the All Blacks this year. The Springboks had 2 good wins against them last year. They're going to be coming to Eden Park pumped up to try and take that record off Scott Robertson and his team. And boy, you don't want to be an All Black coach losing that Eden Park Fortress record, do you? That's going to be one thing that's surely going to mount more pressure on Scott Robertson this year. And then you're going to have teams like Australia and Argentina who are going to really believe that they can beat the All Blacks this year. I think Joe Schmidt has got this Wallabies team really pumping, and I think after a fantastic Lions series, they're going to be very dangerous in the Rugby Championship, and I'm sure the Australian Wallabies are going to be up to try and get that Bledisloe Cup off the All Blacks and really give them a hard time in 2025. The Argentinians did it last year. They've got a self-belief. I believe they're one of the best growing teams in World Rugby at the moment, and they're going to believe they can knock off these top teams in World Rugby on any given day. So they're going to be a difficult opposition as well. There are no easy games this year for the All Blacks, and Razor Robertson and his crew are going to have to be on their mettle to deliver in every single game. Look out for selections early on against the French team. See how they play, but keep your eye on that last 20 minutes of those games, because I think that's going to tell us a lot about the success or failures of this All Black team in 2025. So there you go. Those are my thoughts about Razor Robertson coming into his second year in charge of the New Zealand All Blacks. Let me know in the comments what you think are going to be the key points for Razor Robertson and his crew to focus on in 2025, so the All Blacks have a very successful year. What do you call a successful year for the All Blacks? Can they go unbeaten, or are 1 and 2 losses going to be acceptable on behalf of All Black fans? I'd love to know in the comments. If you're enjoying my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button, give this video a bit of a thumbs up and a like. Plenty more content coming from me, Mark at Inside Rugby here. I'm back onto YouTube, I'm loving it, and we've got plenty of fantastic rugby coming up between now and the end of the year. Would love your support throughout that journey. I'll see you again very soon from here in beautiful Mexico. Until then, it's time to say adios, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.